Hello, everyone. So we are back with the Introduction to Django series. And today what we are going to do is we are going to work on a very simple website. It is going to be mostly a static website, but it will have some dynamic content in it. All right. So this class was supposed to be yesterday, first of all, but yesterday we had to postpone due to some technical reasons. So we are continuing with this today. All right. Perfect. Pratik is saying before the class starts, anyone interested in changing the time from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., 6 to 7? IPL aa raha hai, dosto. Well, Pratik will have to discuss that internally in the team. And if that works, we will probably be able to change the time, but we'll have to discuss that. Okay. Cool. Now, last time I basically reviewed the last stream and I noticed that some students were having very genuine issues. So first of all, the screen was not too clear, right? The reason was that I was streaming at 720p and my screen was 1080p, right? So there was some compression going on there. So today I have tried to fix that. So let us see how this goes. All right, there's one more thing. So let me quickly share the screen. Let me quickly share my screen. Perfect. All right, I hope that all of you can see the screen. Yes, perfect. So let me quickly, interesting. All right, just give me a moment. Perfect. So let me quickly open PyCharm. So last time I was using this PyCharm professional thing, right? So I had the Python Ultimate, so I was using that. And Python Ultimate has first-class support for Django. Now I noticed that the community version of PyCharm does not provide the Django creation script out of the box, right? So if you go to PyCharm, the community edition, if I try to start this, it will load in a second. Right, so I'm loading the latest community edition. If I click new project, it is not really showing me. It is not really showing me any option to create a Django-based project. All right. So there's a stray cat on the screen. I am not sure what you mean by that. Can you elaborate briefly class yesterday? So Vidhan, we did not have a class yesterday. We had a class day before yesterday. In the day before yesterday class, we discussed how to quickly create a Django project, right? And what Django is, what it provides, things like that. Now, in that stream, what I basically did was I was using PyCharm Ultimate version, the paid version of that. And that has a way of creating Django projects that is not available in the community version. So let us quickly go through that first. Right, let us quickly go through that first. So let me cancel this. Let us not create a project using PyCharm. Let us instead go to a terminal. Right, let us go to a terminal. So I'm just going to enter bash because I'm using a different shell. So this is what the terminal looks like. I'm currently in this directory. So I'm in my home folder, home/truck, and inside that I have the folder introduction to Django. All right, so let's quickly see what files are there. So there's just one lecture1, lecture1.md, and there's some folder called lecture2. Let me quickly remove this folder. Lecture2, right? And we are going to create this folder fresh. All right, so we are going to see how to create a Django project from the command line without using any sort of IDE. All right, so first let us quickly create the directory for this. Let us quickly create the directory for this. So I'm going to make a dir lecture2. Right, so mkdir is the make directory command that will create a directory called lecture2. Now, if I want to go inside this directory, I can do cd lecture2. And now I'm inside this directory, and this directory is currently empty. All right. So let me create one more folder. So let me call this mkdir to-do project. All right. So this will be the name of our project, to-do project, and we are going to create this directory as well. So now I have this to-do project directory in my in my current directory. All right. So what I'm going to do first of all, let me quickly go inside this to-do project. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to create a virtual environment. Now, if you were doing this using the PyCharm Ultimate version, it would have automatically created a virtual environment for us. Since we are doing this with a terminal, we will have to do that manually. All right. Now, if you guys remember, what is the virtual environment used for? The virtual environment is used for making sure that our dependencies are well managed and isolated from the rest of the system, right? So how to create a virtual environment? Very simply, we can type the virtual environment command. So that is virtual env. We can provide it a path to the Python interpreter. So to figure out where the Python interpreter is, we have to first run a command like which Python 3. And this will tell me that, hey, Python 3 is currently installed in user bin Python 3. Right? This will tell me this binary is installed in this location. I can also check what version of Python 3 I'm running by doing this. Right? So I'm running Python 3.8.2 and it is located in this particular directory. So now if I want to create a virtual environment using this version of Python, I will have to do virtual env. Then -p stands for supplying the Python interpreter path. Right? So I'm going to supply the Python path. So user bin Python 3, right? And then I'm going to give it the name of the VM directory, right? Give it the name of the virtual environment directory. So I'm just going to name it VM. Right? The moment I hit enter, it will take a few seconds, but it will say that I created a virtual environment using this version of Python, right? And it went ahead and installed some things for us. So let us quickly see what happened. So if I do ls, we will see a VM directory has been created. And inside this VM directory, we have a ton of different things. So inside this VM directory, ls VM, we have a ton of different things, right? So once again, we are in this directory. Now to activate the virtual environment, what do we do? To activate a virtual environment, what command did we use? So the command was source, right? This will make sure, so typing source will make sure that whatever command we run, if that command exports anything, if that command makes any changes to our shell, then that changes are reflected, right? Reflected back. So source vn bin activate. Yes. So when I press enter, something will happen. So first of all, I got this new thing added to my prompt. The VM got added to my prompt. And now if I do which Python, you will see that Python is now pointing to the Python inside this virtual environment directory. All right. And now I can also do which pip. You will see that pip is also pointing to the pip inside this virtual environment. All right. Perfect. So now what I can come over here and do is I can very quickly install the Django dependencies inside this virtual environment. Right. So if I will do pip install Django. Right. And what that will do is this will install Django in my current virtual environment, right? In the current virtual environment. So it will take some time to install Django. It will download some stuff, right? So once it is done, we will see successfully installed all this stuff and we are done now. Okay. Now, if I want to see whether Django has been correctly installed or not, I can do several things. So first of all, I can do pip list, right? And inside pip list, I will be able to see a package named Django has been installed, right? So that's good. Alternatively, what I can do is I can start the Python interpreter, right? And I can try to import Django. So this also works. So I know that Django is correctly installed, right? Perfect. So once again, we are in this directory. Now what we are going to do is to create a Django project. Django provides this very handy terminal utility. It provides this command line interface, right, which is called the Django admin, right? DJANGO -admin. Right? If I do Django admin -- help, it will give me that, okay, Django admin supports the following commands. It supports all these different commands. So check, compile messages, all these weird things, right? Let's not worry about all of these at the moment. The command that we are looking for is Django admin start project, right? And then we are going to give the name of a project, right? So we want to name a project Todo project. So let us quickly call this Todo project, and we have to give it a directory. So I want this project to be placed in the same directory as the directory I am in. So I'm just going to put a dot. Dot stands for the current directory. All right. Dot stands for the current directory. Perfect. So if I hit enter, something will happen. So I don't really see any output on my screen. But if I now try to list the directory, I see that several things have happened. A folder called Todo project has been created. A file called manage.py has been created, right? And if I look inside this Todo project, I will see some files are there. The familiar files, dunder init, settings.py, which we saw earlier, urls.py, which we saw earlier, wsgi and asgi, which we said that we will talk about later. All right. So this is how you create a Django project without using something like Python, by using the terminal itself. Is this clear? Perfect. Now what we are going to do is we have the setup. Now let us quickly load this project in Python. Right. So now I'm going to click on open. So I'm opening a project and I will have to navigate to where my project is located. So it is in Pragya. Inside Pragya, it is an introduction to Django. Inside that, it is in lecture 2. And inside that, it is in the to-do project. Right? So you will see inside to-do project, there's also a to-do project. But the directory that we are going to select is the directory which will have this manage.py. Right? This manage.py is not inside this folder. This manage.py is inside this folder. So this is the folder that we are going to select. All right. So we click OK over here, and PyCharm will load this project for us. So it will take some time. It will do some indexing and stuff. It will prepare the workspace for us. And after some time, things will be ready. All right. So it is taking a moment over here. Yes. Cool. So let us quickly go inside this to-do project and let us look at this settings.py. Okay, I'm just going to double click it. It is going to open the settings.py file. Now, one thing that I want to do in PyCharm before proceeding is I want to go to this VM. I want to go to this VM. I want to right click it. And I want to select mark directory as okay, it is automatically excluded. Right. So if this does not show up as orange, then you have to go right click over it, mark directory as, and then exclude it. Right? That is basically telling PyCharm that in this directory, there is no source code files. It is just a virtual environment. All right. Perfect. So once this is done, now what we can do is we can try to run the project. Now we see two ways. We saw two ways of running the project last time. What were the two ways? One way was using the terminal. Right? So if I click over here and I open the terminal, it will take some time to open up. Let me go in the bash mode. All right. The one way I can run the terminal, one way I can run this program is by saying Python manage.py and doing what? Calling run server. Right? If I run Python manage.py run server, if I hit enter, it will start this Django project. Right? It said that, okay, I'm starting this Django project and it has started this at this particular URL. If I open this URL in the browser, let me quickly open that. Right. So if I open this URL in the browser, we see that familiar default page that Django provides us with the fancy rocket. All right. Now, if I go back to the PyCharm window, just a moment. All right. Perfect. Now, to stop this, I can press Control C. Right? To stop this, I can press Control C. Well, the terminal is perhaps not the best way of always running our projects. Because we are in an IDE, let us create a run configuration. Right? Let us create a build configuration. To do that, what we are going to do is we are going to go to this large button, Add Configuration on the top right. Right? Currently, no configurations has been provided for us. So we are going to click on Add Configuration and we are going to add a configuration. Okay, we are going to add a configuration. In this, we are going to choose a normal Python configuration. All right. We are going to choose a normal Python configuration. And what we are going to do is we are going to give it a name. So let us give it a name like run server, because this is what we want to do. Right? We want to run the command run server. Now in the script path, instead of choosing the script path, let us quickly choose the module name. Right? And in the module name, let us provide manage. So what this is going to do is this is going to run the manage.py file. Okay, it is going to run the manage.py file. Now we have to provide some parameters to it. What parameters do we want? We want to run the server, right? We want manage.py to run the server. So we'll just provide the parameter run server over here. Right? Now basically this will be when we click apply and OK, this will be saved as a configuration. And now you see we have this configuration over here, run server, and we have this nice green button over here. It also says that I can press Shift F10 to run that project. So if I just click on run now, you see that this thing has been run in a separate window group, right? So it is no longer in terminal. It is inside this run window. Right? And the good thing about that is you can very simply stop the server from here. You can simply rerun the server from here, and the output is managed. It does not really clutter your terminal. All right. So that is basically how you configure basically a run configuration in PyCharm. All right. Now I'm going to stop this project. I can either click this button or I can click this button. So let me just click this, and it will stop the server. I can minimize this now. Perfect. Cool. Now what we are going to do is we are going to very simply create an application. Right? We are going to create an application. Let us call this simple website, right? Or let us call this something else. So to create an application inside a Django project, to create a Django app, what do we have to do? We have to do Python manage.py start app and followed by the name of the app. Right? So let us name this app something like tasks. Okay, so we are going to create a to-do project. In the to-do project, we will have something called tasks. So the user will be able to add tasks, they will be able to remove tasks, and so on. Okay, so I'm just going to hit enter over here. And when I do that, something will happen. So I don't really see any output in my terminal. But if I go back to my files, I will see that a folder called tasks has been created over here. All right, a folder called tasks has been created over here. And inside this tasks folder, I have several familiar things. So I have done the init, I have done the admin, done the apps, models, tests, views, and so on. All right, perfect. Cool. So let us not worry about all of these now. Let me just click close all these files. So this is what we have. We have very simply created a tasks application, right? Now, what we want to do is we want to very simply create a view. So this is what we saw in the last class. So to create a view, I can come over here and I can say def, let's say index, right? And it will accept a request. And I can just say render, or I can just perhaps return HTML response. And inside this HTML response, I can provide some text. So I can import this. Just give me a moment. So this was not HTML response. So let's not worry about that. Let's render a template directory. Okay. So we are going to return some value over here. Right? So let's say return something. So we will fix this later. So I'm just going to do a pass at the moment. Right. So this index function, this is a view. This is a function-based view that we have created over here. To register this view, once again, what do we have to do? To register this view, inside the tasks folder, we have to create a urls.py. Right? We have to create a new file, urls.py. Right? And inside this urls.py, we have to provide some URL patterns. Right? So we have to provide some URL patterns. We have to provide URL patterns, something like URL patterns equals to, and we are going to provide it some path. Inside the path, we are going to say what the path is and what you should render. Right? So we want to render views.py. Right? So for that, I'm going to from dot import views. Right? And I'm going to say, if this is the path, if the path is the empty URL, then please render views.index. Right? Please render this function in views.index for me. And let me also import this function called path. Right? And I will import this from django.urls.path. Right? So basically, this is done now. So if a request comes to my tasks application, and if the URL for that request is empty, then I will render this particular template. Okay, I will render this particular function. Okay. Now, once again, this is not complete. So currently, nobody is really sending the URL to my tasks project. So for doing that, I have to come to this global urls.py. Right? Inside this to-do project, there's another urls.py. I have to come over there and I have to add a URL pattern. Add a URL pattern. The pattern can look something like, just give me a minute. The pattern could look something like, why is it not typing? All right. So path, and I can provide it a URL. So something like tasks / and then I can include the tasks.urls file. Right. Now I'll quickly import this include function. To do that, I'll press Alt Enter and import this name from django.urls.include. Okay. So now basically what I'm telling is, if anyone goes to the website /tasks, then please send all those requests to tasks.url. Right? Please send all those requests to tasks.url. Inside that, I'm saying if someone enters the empty URL, then please go to index. Is that clear, first of all? All right. Perfect. Now, this is what we did last time. Let us not do this right now. So inside this views.py, I'm going to remove this index. I'm going to remove this index function from views.py. Let me go to tasks URLs. So notice that there are two URLs files. There is the project-wide URLs. So this is the to-do project urls.py. This is the project-wide URLs. The other is the tasks URLs. Right? Inside tasks, I have this urls.py. So we are mostly dealing with this tasks urls.py. All right. Instead of returning instead of returning a particular function, what I'm going to return is I'm going to return a template. All right, I'm going to return a particular template. Now to do that, what I can say is I can use a function that Django provides. The function is template view dot as view, and I can provide it a template name. Template name equals to something like index.html. HTML. All right. Perfect. Now, once again, I have to import this name. So import template view from this particular location. All right. So from Django.views.generate, import template view, and I can put this thing over here. So let us quickly try to run the server right now. Okay, let us quickly try to run the server right now. So if I click on this green button, it will run the server. Let me go to the, so it is saying that, all right, the server is up and running. If I go back to the browser, if I reload this page, I will see this familiar 404 page not found error. Let me go to /tasks, right, because that is the URL that we have registered, the website /tasks. And if I hit enter, it is giving me a different error. It is giving me an error saying template does not exist at tasks. And it is saying that you were requesting this index.html template, but this index.html template does not exist. All right, and that's fair because we have not really created this template. We have just told Django that, hey, whenever someone goes to this tasks page, give them this template back. All right, so now our task is to create that template. Okay, our task is to create that template. Now to create that template, what we are going to do is we are going to go to this global settings.py. Okay, we are going to go to this settings.py and we are going to configure the templates location. Just give me a second. We are going to configure a templates location. All right, so this is allowed host, this is installed apps, this is middleware. Somewhere at the bottom over here, we see templates, and inside that we see an empty list for the directories. All right, we see an empty list for the directories. Over here, we are going to provide it a directory. Okay, over here, we are going to provide it a directory. Now let us quickly see what variables we have. At the top, this variable is declared for us called base dir. All right, this variable is declared for us. Let us see what location that variable points to. That variable says that, okay, path dunder file. Now dunder file in Python is the path of the current file. So I'm in settings.py. So dunder file will be the path of settings.py. Okay, so it will be /home /pragya. So it will be /home /pragya /intro to Django /lecture2 /root project /settings.py. Right. Now what I want to do is I want to go to its parent folder, which is to do project, and its parent folder, which is to do project. All right. So this is the base directory. This is the base directory of my project, and basically base dir points to this by doing get the path, go to the parent, and go to the parent once again. Okay. Yes. Perfect. So this is the base dir for us. Now I want to create a templates directory. So let me go into this to do project. Let me right click and create a new directory, and let me call this templates. Okay, so I'm creating a new templates directory inside this base directory. Inside my project root, I'm creating this templates directory. Now, once I have done that, I can go to this templates configuration over here, and inside the DIS, I can provide the location to this templates directory. To do that, what I have to type is base dir /templates. Right. So base dir is basically a path variable. Base dir is a path object in Python, and path objects override this divide function. Right? Path objects override this divide function that allows us to basically concatenate paths. So it will take base dir directory, it will concatenate it with templates. Okay, don't worry about this, about how this works. This is basically kind of like string concatenation, but this does not work with strings. This works just with path variables. Okay, cool. Now once we have this configured, let us try to rerun this again. So notice that since I'm in the development setting, since I'm in the development mode, I don't have to really run the server again and again. The moment something changes, the moment a file changes, the server will restart automatically. So let me go back to the browser and let me try to reload this page. But once again, I'm getting the same error. I'm getting the same error. It says me that index.html does not exist yet. Well, the reason is once again the same. We have told Django where to look. We have told Django what directory to look in, but we have not created the index.html file. Okay, so let me quickly go and let me create a file, HTML file, index.html. Okay, so this is the index.html. Let me quickly add some. So this is the index.html file. Let me quickly add some text to it. Now if I reload this page, I see that this file has been rendered. Is that clear? Right? So once again, what we did was we went to the views, we deleted the index view, we deleted that function. Instead of that, inside the URL, we told Django to render a template, right? To render a template. And how did we tell Django that? We told Django that so Django provides a function template view. Right? If we do template view.as view and provided a template name, Django will basically render this template whenever someone hits this URL. Right? So what we said was, hey Django, find this index.html template, and when someone goes to the URL /tasks/empty, just render this index.html from you. Right? And once again, to help Django locate the index.html, we had to go inside settings and we had to provide the templates directory. We had to provide the templates directory, which is just going to be the base directory. Inside that, the templates folder. All right? Perfect. Okay. So let us quickly see what doubts are there till now. Pranay is asking, what is the difference between to-do application and tasks folder? So this to-do project is the Django project, right? So in Django, let me quickly go to index.html. Basically, let me type over here. In Django, we have two things. Right? We have two things. That one is the main project, right? Main project. So our main project over here is the to-do project. Inside this main project, we have several modules, right? We have several sub-modules that may or may not work independently, right? So basically, we want to divide a project into sub-modules so that those modules are reusable. I can reuse those modules elsewhere, right? And those modules are basically called Django apps. Right? Those modules are basically called Django apps. So I can totally do all of this inside the to-do project itself, but it is usually a better practice to create a new application, to create a new Django app, right? And then do the work inside that. Is that clear? So which is why we did this thing called Python manage.py start app, and we gave the name of the app as tasks, right? Which created this tasks folder inside this. Perfect. Now we are getting a question. Rohit says, why are we using template view as method? So once again, the template view is just there. So this is a function that Django provides that tells us that, hey, please find this template and render it for me. There are other ways of doing this. And as we move forward, we will look at what other ways of doing this are. Right? So we will do something similar, but we will do it manually. Right? We will not be using this function. But for now, this is a very simple function that Django provides so that we can render a particular template. We can give it a template name over here. And whenever someone comes to this URL, Django will just render this template for us. Okay? Perfect. Let us see what other questions we have. Okay, Bhupali is saying that the speed is too fast. Okay, Bhupali, so thank you for the feedback. I'll try to go a little slower. What is the use of render? What is the use of render? So Vidhan, we will come to that. Render is another function that Django provides that allows us to render a template with some context. Okay, so what is a context? What is a context and how does rendering work? We will come to that when we talk about the template engine of Django. All right. Perfect. All right. So let us move on from here. So we did this and we got a very simple index.html file. All right. Perfect. Now let us say that I want to create another file. Right. So I go back to the settings. I go back to this urls.py, and perhaps for this about page. Right? Perhaps if someone goes to /tasks/about, I want to render this about.html, right? Or basically, if someone goes to /path/blog, I want to perhaps render this blog.html, right? So I will have to create several HTML files over here, right? So let me quickly copy this index.html and let me create a blog.html. Let me create perhaps about.html and so on and so forth. Right, so I've created two files, blog.html and about.html. Let us quickly open these as well. Inside the blog.html, I can provide this is the blog page. So this is the about page. And inside the blog, I can say this is the blog page, right? So let me quickly save these two files, and let me save this urls.py as well. So now if I go back to the browser and if I run this, so slash tasks slash nothing gives me this index page, slash tasks slash about gives me this about page, and slash tasks slash blog gives me this blog page. Is that clear? Yes, perfect. So let us move on from here. Now suppose that we wanted to include some extra stuff in this index.html page. So currently we have this very simple file, right? Currently we have this very simple file, but when you're actually building a website, you won't have things as simple as that, right? You want to include some JavaScript, you want to include some CSS and a lot of different things. So let us try to do that. Let us try to include Bootstrap, right? So how many of you are familiar with Bootstrap? Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is just a library that provides us nice styling. Right? It's a open source CSS framework. Is that clear? So if I go to Bootstrap, I want to include Bootstrap in my project. Now to include Bootstrap, let me go to the tutorial, and it says that to include Bootstrap, I can just put this link in there. Right? Just put this link in the head tag. Right? It says copy paste the style sheet link into your head. All right. So let me just quickly copy this. Let me just copy this, and inside the head, let me paste this. Let me paste this over here. Okay. So let me paste this over here. Let me try to reload the index.html now. So I'll go back to the index.html and let me try to run this. Right. This is index.html file. Currently, I don't really see any difference. Right. Currently, I don't really see any difference. But let us try to do something. Right. Let us try to create a paragraph over here. Right. Lorem ipsum. So let me create a head tag. Inside this head tag, I will perhaps put this. Right. So I have basically added some elements. I have added a head tag and I've added a p tag. All right. And let me basically copy this into the about page as well. Let me copy this into the about page as well. So this is about.html. Now let me try to rerun this file. Let me try to load this. So task.file, the index.py, index.html looks like this. Right? And if I go to about looks a little different. Right? Notice that both the files have the same content. Both of them have an h1 tag and a p tag, but the about page looks a little different from the index page. And the reason is that the index page has Bootstrap. The index page has Bootstrap inside it. And Bootstrap will basically change the styles of the different elements that I'm using. All right. Now, perhaps if I want to include Bootstrap across my entire website, I want to include Bootstrap across my entire website. So I have two options. Either I can take this link and I can paste it inside each one of my files. Right? I can provide this link inside each one of my files. So if I do that, now my index page looks like this and my about page also looks similar. Right? But this is not a very good practice. Why is this not a very good practice? Because you are repeating yourself. Right? You are repeating yourself again and again. Suppose that you wanted to change. Right? Suppose currently we are using the Bootstrap version 4.5.2. Right? Suppose a new Bootstrap version comes out. Suppose Bootstrap 5 has come out, and we want to update a Bootstrap. So we will have to go to each and every index, each and every HTML file, each and every template file, and we'll have to update this manually. Not a pretty good design, right? We have to update it at so many places. So for that, Django provides a very nice thing called templates. All right. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a base template for us. So over here, I'm going to say templates. I'm going to create a new file, new HTML file, and let me call this base.html. Right. So basically what I have done is I have created this base.html file. Is that clear, guys? Cool. Now how to work with this base template. Now what I'm going to do is let me basically delete all these three files, or let me just remove everything from these files. Let me just copy this URL into base.html. Let me just remove all these files. So I'm going to empty out blog.html. I'm going to empty out about.html. I'm going to empty out index.html. Okay, so the basic file that I have, which actually has HTML content, is this base HTML. Okay, cool. Now basically I want to provide it some blocks. I want to provide this HTML with some sections. So basically I want to say that any particular web page that you are going to render, that web page is going to look like this. Except for the fact that you will have some customizable stuff inside this. right? You might have some customizable stuff inside this. So basically, I could come over here and say, and I could mark a block. I could mark a block, right? Something like this. So I could come over here and I could write this block, and I could give the name of the block. So basically, page body, something like this, right? And I could mark the end of it. So I could say something like end block, end block, right? So first of all, this is not valid HTML syntax. This syntax over here, this is not HTML, all right? Okay, so how do comments look in HTML? So comments look like this in HTML. All right, comments look like this in HTML. So this is not valid HTML syntax. Right? HTML cannot handle this. What Django is going to do is Django is going to read this HTML file. It is going to find out anything that looks like this. This is the Django templating engine. Right? So it is going to look for anything that looks like this, and it is going to replace this with valid HTML. All right. So how does the replacement work? We will talk about that soon enough. Now, what I'm basically done is I have created a block over here. I have created a block over here, and I have called that block page body. Let me also come over here in the title and let me add some title. So I can say this is, or let me just say to-do app, and let me provide a hyphen followed by another block. So I'm going to create another block over here, block. Let me name this as title. Okay, so the name of this block is title, and let me close this block as well, end block. Right? So this is what we have so far. In the base HTML, we have added the link to the Bootstrap CSS, and we have added two blocks. One block is called the page body. Another block is called the title. Okay. Now what I can do in something like index.html. Now what I can do is I can extend this base.html. I can extend this base.html file. So now I don't have to. Now I don't have to write everything. Now I don't have to write all of this again and again. What I can simply do is I can come over here and I can say this file extends base.html, and notice that I have to put this in quotes. I have to put this base.html in quotes. This is a Python string. All right. So the moment I do this, and if I try to run this, if I try to go to this index file, let us go to the page source. You will notice that all these things are there, right? The to-do app followed by nothing, the link to the Bootstrap. In the body, there is nothing, right? So basically, everything that was in the base.html that automatically got copied in the index.html, right? That automatically got copied in the index.html. But once again, this is just a blank copy. We want to do something more, right? We want to extend, we want to add stuff to the base.html, which is why these blocks are here, right? Which is why these blocks are here. So what I can do is in the index.html, let me actually put this into vertical split. So over here at the base.html, in the index.html, I can tell what goes inside this block. Right? I can tell what goes inside this block. So basically what I can say is I can say something like inside the block page body, put this content for me. Hello, this is the page body. All right. And basically then I can end this block. So I can say end block. All right. So the moment I have done this, let me go back to the browser and let me reload the page. This is what I see. Let me look at the source of it and notice that in the base HTML, this was the block, right? This was the page body block. This value got replaced by this content over here. Right? Basically, consider this as a variable. Consider this as a variable called page body. Over here, I'm setting the value of that page body variable, right? And that will be replaced over here. Okay. Now the title currently is empty. Let me come over here and replace the title as well. So to do that, I will say, okay, the name of the block is title. Okay, so I'm going to say, all right, in the title block, fill this value. So this is the index page, right? And basically, end block. All right. Now once again, if I reload this, interesting. Title. Oh, sorry, block title. Right, I have to tell that this is a block. And now if I reload this, you see that the title also has changed. So inside the title, I now have the content. All right, so this is basically the base.html and the various ways of extending this. And the reason why we do that is because we want our main template to be in one location. Right? So this is the base template for everything that we are going to do. All right, perfect. Now let us quickly add some things over here. So we have this style sheet of Bootstrap. Let us add some custom styling. So perhaps let us add a CSS style over here. In that CSS style, we are going to give a border to the body. Perhaps right? We are going to say padding 1 em. Right. So we are adding a padding to the body. We are going to say width. Let's say 800 pixels. So we are limiting the width of the entire page to 800 pixels, and we are going to set the margin to auto. That will make sure that it is vertically centered. Okay, it is horizontally centered on our screen. And let us also give it a nice weird background. So let us put something like border 1 pixel solid, and let us give it a nice weak color, something like perhaps FFF, or let's say AA. All right. So if I reload this page now, notice that interesting. I don't have a padding all the way around. All right. So notice that my width of the page is now 800 pixels. Right. I've just added some CSS styling to it. All right. Now this is very ugly. In reality, you won't do that, but I just wanted to illustrate that this is now available on all the pages. This will now be available on all the pages. So once again, our blog.html is currently empty. About.html is currently empty. So let us quickly fix that. Okay. In the blog about.html, I'm going to put in the page body, this is the about page, right? And I'm going to say, I'm going to give it a title, something like about. And inside this, I'm going to give it a title, something like index. This is the home page of our website. All right. Inside blog, once again, I will say something like all our blogs live here. Right, and I'm going to give this a name as blog. Okay, so this is done. Now once again, I can quickly reload. This is the index page. I can go to about. This is the about page, and I can go to blog. This is the blog page. Notice that all the different styling that we have provided in the base HTML, they will be inherited in all these different places. Okay, cool. So let us quickly see once again in the chat if we have any questions. Vidhan is asking, how many modules do we have to process while dealing with Django? So Vidhan, Django is a huge thing, right? Now, do not try to look at this as you have to remember all of these things. Right? Do not try to think that you have to remember all these different things. You have to remember all these different commands. You don't have to. What you have to do is, whenever you want to do something in Django, just go to djangoproject.com and look it up in the docs. So get started with Django, go to the documentation and basically look it up there. There's a nice tutorial. There's all these different things over there, right? There's a huge list of documentation over here. Okay. Now, the reason why we are doing this tutorial is if you just try to do that from the scratch, if you just try to create projects from the scratch by just following the tutorial, things are not going to be that smooth. All right. So you need some sort of a base understanding. You need a base limited understanding. And once you have that, you can go ahead and implement projects on your own. During those projects, if you don't know something, then you can basically look it up. All right, so that is what we are doing. I'll provide you the base knowledge, so you'll be familiar with the more important concepts of Django, right? And then whenever you want to add something, you can just look up the information and basically learn that information on the go. All right, perfect. So let us move on. Let us see. We can have multiple blocks in base. Yes, Rohit. As we saw over here, we have defined multiple blocks, right? So inside the base HTML, we have defined a block called title and we have defined a block called page body. So we can totally have multiple blocks, right? If we want to change something in other HTML files other than base HTML, can we write HTML CSS codes as well in other files? Yes, totally. So basically what we are saying over here is we are saying take this base.html, right? Look at this base.html, copy everything from here inside this index.html page, right? That is what we have told Django. In this line, we have said that, all right, take everything from here and copy this over here, right? Then we have told Django that, all right, in the stuff that you have copied, there will be a block named page body, right? There will be a block named page body. Replace that block with this content. Replace that block with this content. So this will be replaced over here. Right? Similarly, there will be a block called title. Replace this block with this content. All right. Now I can totally come over here and I can put some CSS, right? I can put some custom CSS. So I can say style, and I can provide something like asterisk to everything. I can provide a background of red, right? So if I do this, and if I try to reload my index.html page now, so notice that everything, this entire body has a background of red. This entire body got a background of red. So basically, I overrided the CSS size over here. Now notice that I can only do this inside a block. If I try to put this outside any blocks, let me quickly reload the page and let us see what happens. Nothing has changed, right? It has not taken effect. If I go to view the source, I will see that whatever that extra CSS I had written, it is nowhere to be found. The reason is that I have to include whatever customization I want inside a block. I have to include that inside a block. I can include that inside the title block. I can include that inside the body block, wherever I want. But I have to put this inside the block. Now, if you don't want to put it in the body block, you can totally come over here. And you can provide a new block. Right? You can come over here and you can say, all right, this is a block called extra styles. Right? And you can end the block over here and end block. Right? And now, if you want to override the CSS, if you want to override the styles, you can come over here inside the block extra styles. You can put your custom CSS over here, style something, right? You can put this over here and work in this manner, end block, right? So this is what you would usually do. I hope that answers your question. We can totally have multiple blocks, and basically, if you want to override something, we have to override that inside a block. Perfect. All right. Ratnesh is asking, can we give any names to these blocks, or is there some predefined standard? So Ratnesh, the names is totally on you. Right? You would want to keep the names sensible, just like we want to have good variable names, but the names are completely dependent on you. These are just variable names. All right, extra styles is just a variable name that you can override over here. Okay, totally depends on what you want to do. Can we inherit any bootstrap template that can relate this project? I'm not sure what your question is, Sparsh. So perhaps you might want to rephrase the question. I'm not really sure what the question means. Okay. Perfect. Vidhan is saying, sir, by replacing all the content, then is there some chance of overlapping? Yes, definitely, Vidhan. There is chance of overlapping. So basically, it could be the case that you try to override a block 2 times. Right? It could be the case that you have included bootstrap in the base.html as well as in the index.html page. And you have to take care of that yourself. Right? You have to make sure that you are not basically doing things double. All right. Perfect. So let us quickly move on now. So these pages are currently static pages. By static, I mean that nothing really changes between them. Right? No matter how many times I reload this page remains exactly the same. All right. Now, this is basically a static website. You can use this for a lot of things, for something like putting a blog, but this is not that useful, right? Whenever we want to have a useful website, the website will have some dynamic content. It will have some content that changes based on different things, right? So let us try to see how we can do that. Okay, So suppose we want to provide the current time inside this index.html page. So we can say this is the homepage of a website, and the time right now is, and I want to somehow provide the time over here. Now, can I put dynamic time in an HTML page? Is there any HTML tag that gives me the time? Not really, right? I can add JavaScript to this, and via the JavaScript, I can put the time. But suppose I want this time to be inside this HTML itself. Suppose I want this time to be right inside this HTML. So I don't really have anything. I don't really have a way of doing that. Now this is where the Django templates come into play. So what I'm going to do is, instead of rendering this index.html using this template view, instead of rendering it like this, I'm going to once again do the thing that we were doing earlier. Right? I will go to views.py and I will create a function def index page. Right? And this will accept a request. Right? And inside this, I'm going to render a template. I'm going to render and I'm going to provide the request. So render function requires three things. It provides request, it requires template name, and then there are some optional parameters. So you can provide a context, you can provide a content type, you can provide a status, you can provide a user. Right? So I'll put the request set, I'll put the template name. What is the template name? It is index.html. Right? And basically, let me put some context over here. Now, this context is going to be a dictionary. Okay, this context is going to be a dictionary, a Python dictionary. Right? So let us currently put the empty dictionary over here, and let us just return this thing. Just give me a second. Return this thing. Right? So we have created this index page function inside views.py. Now, instead of using template.asView, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the views from .import views, and inside this I'm going to give this thing views.indexPage. All right. So this will behave almost exactly the same way. In fact, this function over here, template view.asView, this function will take this template name. It will create a function like this on the fly, and it will provide this over here. That is exactly what this does. All right. So internally, this function works the same way as this function. All right. So let me quickly save this and let me reload our website. So let me reload our website, and we see that it's the same, right? Nothing has changed. I've basically just added this line. The time right now is this. Okay, I've just basically added this line away. Cool. Now back in this inside.html, I can ask for a variable. So I can say something like, okay, give me the variable, the current date. Right? So I am asking Django to replace this content with the variable that I will provide in the context. Okay, I'm asking Django to replace this with the variable I'm going to provide in the context. Right, so let me inside over here. Notice in the context I'm not providing anything right now. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide this variable cur date. Right, and let me give it a random value, something like some date over here. Right, some date over here. So now if I reload this, I see that this some date has been replaced. At the time right now, this current date inside the source code, this current date has been replaced by some date. Okay, is that clear? So basically, we are rendering a template with some context. We're providing it some context. Okay. Now this context can be dynamic. So instead of giving it some date, I can totally come over here. From date time, import date time, right? And I can do perhaps something like datetime.now, right? And I can convert this into a string perhaps. If I do this, basically this current date, this value of this current date will change every time I reload the page. Right? Every time I reload the page. Now you see that my website is no longer static. Every time I reload the page, new content is being rendered. Right? The time is changing again and again. Is that clear? Basically, we have a very simple static website itself. We have not added any JavaScript. We are not doing anything fancy. We kind of have a static website, but it can have dynamic content as well. The dynamic content will be supplied when we actually make the request. Right? When the request is being rendered, that is when the dynamic content will be supplied in the context variable. Is this clear? Yes. Perfect. Let us quickly wait over here. Let us see if we have any questions. Adding blocks and their execution is handled by HTML or Django framework? That's a very good question, Rohit. So whenever we provide this, this is a Django template. The Django engine is first of all going to read this. Right? The Django engine is first of all going to read this. It is going to do a few things. So let me basically create a new Scratch file over here. Let me insert. Interesting. Let me create a new file. Index copy. Okay, and I'm going to show you what is really going to happen. Right? So what Django will do is it will go to this index.html page. It will see this content. Right? It will read the first line. It will say extends base.html. Right? So it will open base.html. It will copy everything and it will paste everything over here. Right? It will paste everything in its temporary value. Then it is going to say, okay, block page body, replace this block by this content. So it is going to come over here. It is going to replace this by this content. Then it's going to say, okay, block title, replace it by this value. So it is going to go to block title. It is going to replace it by this value. Right? Then it's going to say block extra styles, replace it by this. So it is going to go to block extra cells. It will replace it by this. Perfect. Now this is the HTML file. Right? This is the HTML file over here. Right? Notice that this HTML file still has some Django syntax. This Django syntax is this. Right? This Django syntax is this. So now when I try to render this, it will say that, okay, take this index.html file and provide it this context. So Django once again is going to say, okay, curDate is a variable I have. So let me replace this value with the whatever this value says, right? Whatever this value says. So it will actually replace this with the time. So the actual time here, right? And when this is done, I have a very simple static HTML file. I have a plain old HTML file. Django will send this HTML file to the browser, and the browser will render this HTML file. So the browser does not know anything about all these things. It does not know about what base.html is. It does not know what the current date is. It does not know what these blocks are. The browser is a plain HTML file. It is Django that is changing the HTML file, creating new files for us on the go. All right? Perfect. So what is static int? We don't have any static ints in Python. We don't have anything like static ints in Python. Some real life examples of dynamic websites. Well, Pranay, I am pretty sure that any website you go to, I mean, there's a 90% chance that it is dynamic, right? You don't really come across static websites nowadays. It was back in the 1990s, back in 1995, that you could actually see static websites. But now every website has some sort of a social login. It has some sort of a comment section. It has something that makes it dynamic, all right? So static websites are usually, I mean, you won't see them around anytime. Perfect. Pranay is asking, and def index page. So Pranay is asking, and def index page. So this particular thing is a function. So while calling in template, it should be like view.index page or view.index page. Good question. Perfect. So basically, let us go to this urls.py and let us see over here. Let us see over here. Inside this urls.py, I am saying if someone comes to this page, if someone comes to the empty URL, then I'm going to provide it a function. Right? I'm going to provide it a function. Now I'm going to provide the function name. Right? Inside this, basically this function, the path function, it expects a string and then it expects a function. It does not expect a result. It expects a function itself. So what I'm doing is I'm sending this index page function. I'm sending this entire function to this path function. Right? I'm saying that whenever someone comes to this request, please call this function for me. If I insert call this function right now, that would be saying, okay, call this function, that will return me something. And then I will say, okay, whenever someone comes to this particular page, then do this for me. Right? Then basically render the same thing for me. That is not going to work. I want Django to call this function again and again. So I'm going to provide the function name directly. Right? So I'm not going to do something like brackets over here. And one thing that you can notice is you can't really put brackets over here because this index page requires a parameter called request, and you don't really have any request to supply it. Right? The request will be supplied by Django. When a person tries to load a URL, a request will be generated. Right? So that request must be supplied over here. You don't really have that request, so you're going to just supply the function over here, and Django will fill in the request by calling this function. Perfect. So Raghav is saying it is basically a function pointer. Kind of. We don't really talk about function pointers in Python. In Python, functions itself are first-class objects. Right? So just like you have objects, if objects, for example, one is an int object. Right? Just like that in Python, this index page is also an object. So this index page equals to an object of the function class. It is an object of the function class. So I mean, we can talk about this when we talk about meta programming in Python. But for now, just understand that we don't really have something like function pointers in Python. Under the hood, in the Python interpreter, it is implemented as function pointers. But Python does not really have any function pointers in it. Right? Perfect. So this was rendering the date. Now we can basically, so let me remove this index copy file. This was just for demonstration purposes. All right. Now in the index.html, I can come over here and I can render the time. And notice that every time I reload this page, the time changes. Right? Perfect. Now let us say I want to provide some other variables. Right? Let us say I want to provide some other variables. So I can come over here and I can provide some anything else. Right? I can come and provide anything else. So I can say, let me just remove this clutter from here. The time right now is this, and basically let me say these are the tasks that we have. Right? And I can come over here and I can render a variable called tasks. Right? So basically I'm saying that, okay, take this variable tasks and put this over here. Right? Put this over here. So in the views.py, I also have to supply a variable called tasks. I also have to supply a variable called tasks. So let us create a tasks. Right? Let us say current tasks. Let us create a simple Python list. Inside this Python list, I will provide some to-do tasks that I have. Right? So something like perhaps create a Django project, simple Django project. Right? Another task could be learn about the various template functions Django provides. Right? Something could be, okay, basically learn how to deploy the project, right? And so on and so forth. And inside the task value, I can simply provide it this particular variable, current tasks. Okay? So basically this current tasks will be placed over here. Okay? This current task will be placed over here. Now let me come over here and try to reload this. When I reload this, I see this thing. The tasks that we have are all these different values. Now this does not look right, right? Why would I want to print something like a Python list in HTML? I don't want this to happen. Right? I don't want this to happen. Instead, I want a nice HTML list to be displayed over here. Yes, do you guys agree? I would like a nice HTML list to be displayed over here. For that, there are several other things. There are several other things that Django provides. So let me first of all give you a URL. So this is the URL over here. I'm also going to paste it in the chat. And I'm also going to put it in the video description. All right, so this is the URL. Basically, in this URL, we have several things that Django provides that you can use in the template. So we have things like autoscape, we have block that we have already seen, we can place comments, we can place CRSRF token, a lot of different things. Right? Coming down, we can see that we have something called, we have extends, right? So we already saw this extends based on HTML. Right? We have filter, we have first off, we have follow. Right? This is what we are going to use. So inside the template, we can provide a for loop, and Django is going to run that for loop for us and replace it with HTML. Right? So this is the syntax. This is the syntax for it. So let me quickly go over here and let me quickly show you how to do that. Right? So I'm going to go back to PyCharm. Right? Now basically this tasks, I know that I will be provided a list of values over here. Right? So I want to render those values. So I want Django to first of all loop over there. Right? So I want to create a list. So I want to suppose create an unordered list. Right? I want to create an unordered list. Inside this unordered list, for every task that I have, I want to create a list item. And inside this list item, that task should be there. Right? This is what I want. So basically, this is what I want. All right. Now, these tasks are inside this tasks variable that I will be passed in the context. So I need to loop over this tasks variable. Right? I need to loop over this task variable. To do that, I can come over here and say, I can open this tag and I can say for something, right? For task in tasks. Right? So this is how we loop in Python. I can do this something like this, right? For tasks and tasks. Then I can come over here and I can start this li tag and I can provide the value. I can provide the task over here. Okay. And then I can end for. So I can come over here and I can end for. Right. So what this is going to do is basically for every value in this tasks list, it is going to create a li tag for us. Okay. That is what it's going to do. So let me just save this and let me just reload this page. Okay. Let me just reload this page. So if I reload this now, we see that these are the current tasks that we have, and we see these tasks over here at the top. Okay, we are seeing this task over here at the top. Now I'm not really sure why the reason for that is, but okay, it is just pushing the UL objects to the top. All right, so to fix that, perhaps I can come over here and I can provide a paragraph. So I can provide a div over here, and let me close this div and over here. So I'm just going to do some HTML formatting now, just to make sure that we have the things showing up correctly. Right. So this is it. Let me try to reload the page, and now our tasks show up over here. Right. we see that the tasks are replaced, right? Create a simple Django project, learn about various templates, learn how to deploy the project, and so on and so forth. Is that clear, guys? So basically, we have taken this value, current tasks, and we have rendered the tasks one by one using a for loop inside Django. Okay. So now we have a static list over here. Right? Currently, we have a static list over here. This is not what we want, right? We want people to be able to add tasks to it, remove tasks from it. We want to save that task in a database, and so many things. So in tomorrow's class, we are going to actually see how we will save these tasks inside a database and how we will get those tasks back from the database. All right, do that. Django provides a thing called Django models. Right? Django provides an ORM. So it provides something called Django ORM. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapper. All right. So basically, when we are dealing with relational databases, like SQL databases, then instead of having to write SQL on our own, we can just work with simple Python objects. And the Django ORM will take care of writing the SQL for us. Right? We just interact with Python objects, Django will write the SQL for us. So tomorrow we will see how to do this. Right? How to make sure that these tasks are not coming from this list, but they are coming from the DB. All right. Perfect. Okay. Chirag is asking, let us quickly see what questions we have. Chirag is asking, so what is the difference between this thing, double curly brace variable name, and this thing? Right. So basically this percentage sign that we have, this is used when you're going to display one of these tags. Right? When you're going to render one of these tags. So tags like first off, tags like if else, tags like this for loop. All right. So tags like this if else. So for the tags that Django provides, for the functionalities, for the templating functionalities that Django provides, you will have this syntax. You will have the open curly brace followed by this percent sign. Right? On the other hand, if you just want to render a variable, then you will have just this double bracket syntax. Right? Perfect. Pranay is asking, will we be using Oracle database also? No, Pranay. So we will stay away from Oracle database. It is a proprietary database. We will be using completely open source technology. So we will be working with, first of all, we will be working with SQLite. Right? First of all, we will be working with SQLite. SQLite is basically a SQL-like engine that Python provides out of the box. Right? It does not provide all the functionality of SQL. It does not provide a nice database. It just saves files. It just saves the contents to a single file. Right? So initially we will be using the SQLite database, but going forward we will actually be installing Postgres on our systems and we'll be using the Postgres database. Right? Cool. So this is it for today's class. Tomorrow, once again, we are going to take these current tasks and we are going to actually load it from the database and we are going to see how to save it inside the database. Right? And we are also going to see things like Django admin. So Django provides a lot of functionality out of the box. Right? And when we actually create these database things, we will notice that to create the forms, right, to create a lot of user interaction, we don't have to write any code. Django will automatically write that code for us. Right? And we will see how that works in the next classes. Perfect. Let's see quickly if we have any other questions. Raghav is asking, is this Jinja templating? So no, Raghav. So you can totally use Jinja templating. Right? Django supports multiple templating engines. You can put any templating engine that you want. Currently, this engine, this templating syntax, this looks a lot like Jinja, but this is not Jinja. This is the Django template engine. All right, this is the Django template engine. You can replace it with Jinja. So if I go to settings.py, or if I go to project settings.py, let me quickly see template. Right. So inside this template, I'm currently seeing a variable called backend. In the backend, I have Django.template.backends.Django templates. So currently, this is the template that is being used. I can replace it with a Jinja template engine. Right? That is totally on me. Okay. Perfect. Any further questions? Jay is asking, why not MySQL 8? So once again, MySQL is not really open source. I mean, it's not really public. So it has some license issues, which is why I just don't want to use MySQL. Postgres is completely public. It is completely open source, and it is much better than MySQL, right? So let us go with Postgres. I mean, whenever you actually work on a large-scale project, you will actually be working with Postgres, right? Or most of the companies, they use Postgres. So let us actually work with something that we can use in real life. Right? Let us not work with toy things. Okay, perfect. Rohit is saying not much into HTML, CSS. So we have to mug up HTML, CSS too. Well, Rohit, that is a truth, right? If you are going to be a software engineer, you will eventually end up having to deal with HTML and CSS. Doesn't really matter in what field you are working in. Right? You could be a backend developer, you could be a front end developer, you could be working with microprocessors, right? And you might still have to deal with a little bit of HTML, CSS, because everything in the world, right? Everything on the internet, everything in the world, they use some sort of HTML, CSS to render out things, right? So don't take it as a bad thing that yeah, मेरे को तो सीखनी पड़ेगी. Don't take it as that. Just try to learn HTML, CSS. It is fun and it provides you with a lot of power. You don't have to do right. You don't have to do it right now. Right? You don't have to understand all of HTML and CSS right now. So basically, what we did, this was pretty simple. Right? This was pretty simple. Just try to learn this for now. Okay, and as we move on, you will be learning more skills about HTML and CSS that will improve your skill set. That will basically improve your capabilities. All right, perfect. It doesn't seem that we have any further questions. In this case, let us end the lecture. Once again, tomorrow, same time, 6:30 to 7:30, and we'll be looking at how to load these things from the database. Perfect. So I hope you enjoyed the class today. See you tomorrow, guys. Bye-bye.